Hello everyone, my name is Kingsford Uram Foley, a student of BYU Pathway Worldwide, pursuing Cloud Server Administration in Term 6, 2025. And this is week 5, and we are about to do the assignment Prove Cybersecurity. What this assignment basically says is that we should look for ports and services in our Windows server and explain what the what those ports and services are used for. So here's the instructions to the assignment. So for this, let's do this. Let's read the instructions here. It says, for this assignment, you must identify 2 network ports and 2 running services on your Windows server. You should show during your recording how you found the list of required ports and services, which ones you picked to learn more about, and finally explain what you learned about them. So the first one is network ports that we are supposed to do. So it says use PowerShell or command prompt to display a list of active network connections, listening ports, and their associated process IDs, that is PIDs, and identify 2 ports and look up what they are typically used for. During your video, explain which ones you picked and what you learn about them. So let's head over to our Windows server, which by the way I've opened in this is our Windows server. Pardon, my screen seems to be freezing up for some strange reason. Okay, we are in our Windows server now, so let's head over. The first instruction says that we should open our command prompt or PowerShell. So let me clear this. I tried doing it earlier, so let me clear this up. It says we should find listening ports, and pick 2 of them. So let's type in this command in our command prompt. Let's start. Let's start dash ano dash let's pipe and find a string of listening ports. So this is the list of the ports, the network that is being listened to on 2 different ports. So these are ports. And these are PIDs. So these are the ports and these are the PIDs. So it says we should pick 2 ports. So let's say we'll pick port 53. What port 53 is used for is it's the basic it's the standard network port for DNSs or domain name service, the domain name system. It acts as an internet phone book to translate human friendly to translate IP addresses to human-friendly names like google.com, microsoft.com, and all that. Without this, if we want to type in any without this port that translates long numbers, if anytime we want to reach out, let's say google.com, we'll have to type in a long list of numbers. But with this, it makes it easier for us to just type the name of the website like google.com, microsoft.com, and this makes web browsing and email easier for internet users. Yes, what happens on this port is that when you type in a URL, your computer sends a request to the DNS server. There's a server called the DNS server through this port 53, to get the corresponding IP address for you. You don't need to type in the address. When you type google.com, it sends, your computer sends a request to the DNS server through this port. So without this port, your computer will not be able to send those requests, to get the IP address of the exact website you are looking for. And its functionality is to make sure you do not have to remember all the long string of numbers when you want to access a certain website. And it's so crucial and critical that this port is usually attacked by these hackers and all that. So there's its firewall is very, very strict, and it doesn't allow access to it to make sure that attackers do not attack your computer or your through this port. So it is very, very, very essential. The next one I would like to pick is the port 636. This port is used for it's called the LDAPs. That's the lightweight directory access protocol secure, the LDAPs. And what it does is that it provides encrypted or secure channels for directory service communication. Crucial for authenticating. It's also crucial for authenticating users and accessing sensitive data in a network like the Active Directory. It allows clients to securely query directory service for user info, policies, resources, ensuring, and it ensures the confidentiality in data and integrity, unlike LDAP, which uses port 380. With that, there's no confidentiality. Sorry, pardon my words. Me mentioning that word confidentiality or secure protection. So that's what the port 636 does. It authenticates users, like it makes sure there's secure authentication, like login credentials, maybe reading and writing data into directories and all that. That's what it does. It provides data protection for on a network management. So that's what it does, like group policies and all that. That's what the LDAPs port does. It provides that protection for it. So that's the two ports we picked. The port 53, which is the DNS port, and the LDAPs port, which is the 636 port. And we now know what both are used for. So now the next step in this assignment is let's find out. It says we should identify, okay, running services. So it says use the services tool within the service manager or PowerShell command line to see list of running services. Identify a few services that are related to network communication. Identify 2 services and look up what they are typically used for. During your video, explain which ones you picked. And so let's head over to our Windows server again. So it says we should use the services tool. So these are tools, and then here's the services tool. So let's click on that. Okay, now we see list of services. So let's see which service. Let me see. Okay. How about we try the DNS server, like we yeah, let's try the DNS server. So the DNS server is a service that runs at the background, and what DNS server does is that it acts like the internet, like I explained with the port 53. It acts like this server acts like the internet phone book, and it translates IP addresses into human-friendly addresses like google.com, as I said earlier, with the port. So its core function is to just convert names like google.com and into IP addresses, and it allows easy way around the internet, because you don't have to remember the long string of numbers in order to be able to access a web page or an internet service. So how the process works is that when you type a domain name into your browser, a request is like when you type a request, the query is sent to the DNS resolver, and then what it does is that the DNS service goes through the internet phone book, and then finds the IP address of the website you want to access or web service you want to access, and then it finds it and then returns it back to you, and then you can be able to access. It then sends, I don't know how to explain this, but your browser, this is how it works. Your browser sends a request through your computer, like your computer sends, and then the DNS server looks through the internet and then finds an IP address that matches your your website that you typed in, and then returns the name authenticator. It returns the request back. It finds, it's like it goes to the DHCP server and then finds which web IP addresses matches the name of the website you sent, and then returns it back. So what the DNS server basically does is that it helps you basically just to avoid typing the long string of numbers, IP addresses, when you are looking for a website, when you are trying to access a website. So what it does, when you give it a name, it will go look for an IP address that matches the website's name, and then gives you access to that. That's what it does basically. So that's what the DNS server does. Let's look for another service like DHCP client. The DHCP client. It's the DHCP basically stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. And what it does is it automatically assigns like network, IP addresses, like subnets and default gateways from a DNS or a DHCP server. Sorry, there's a server, so which has IP addresses on it. So what this DHCP client does is that for every computer or every service you want to use, this would automatically assign an IP address to your computer, for you to have access to the internet. What happens is that when a broadcast request is sent, a DHCP discover message is used to find a network, and then it receives an offer. When it receives like a request, there's an offer, it sends back an offer to the DNS or the gateway, through the gateway, and then when it receives that, your computer will have to, when it accepts it, a message is sent back to it that the IP address that it sent has been accepted. So it automatically, what it does is that it eliminates the manual IP configuration anytime you want to manage your network. And that's what it does. Like, for instance, as we are browsing the internet, this is the DHCP server that provides my computer, DHCP client, that assigns an IP address automatically to my computer. So when I'm trying to access the internet, what the IP address it assigns to my computer becomes my ID, on the internet. So when I want to send a request or a message or browse the internet, this DHCP client gives my computer an IP address, so I do not have to configure IP addresses manually onto my computer or into my computer system. So that's what the DHCP client does. It says here registers and updates IP addresses and DNS records for this computer. If blah blah, if this doesn't work, it stops it and all that. So that's what the DHCP client does. Now let's go back to the assignment. So we've been able to at least explain the DNS server, what it does. It's like the IP resolver, when you want to browse the internet, you do not have to type in the whole IP address when you are looking for like, let's say, google.com. The DNS server, what it does is it goes to the internet, looks for which websites have the which IPs have the website address you typed in. So then it gives the IP address to it, and the DHCP client provides our computer, automatically assigns to our computer an IP address anytime we want to access the internet as our identification on the internet. We do not have to manually configure IP addresses into our computer or network, because this does that for us automatically. So we've done, at least explained 2 services and 2 ports, in our Windows server. Let's now go back to the instructions and see what we are supposed to do next. The third one is that creates a firewall rule that allows inbound and outbound traffic on port 5000. This rule should be TCP only. Okay. Show this setting in your screen recording, including how to turn this rule on and off. Okay, so let's go to our Windows server, which as setting an inbound and outbound rule means that we have to go to the Windows firewall, since it's a port, and so a port issue or security issue, you have to set a rule on that port, using that port number 5000. So let's since we are in our Windows firewall, Defender firewall now, let's click the advanced settings. Okay, the advanced settings is here, and then you can see here the rules, the inbound rules and outbound rules. So it says you should create inbound rules, a new inbound rule, so let's click here, and then if you want to set a new rule, you can see here, or rather just right click on this and we see a new rule here. You click it, okay. So what rule are we trying to set? We are trying to set a port rule, so it says port. We should click port here, and then we click next, and the instruction specifically says it should be a TCP only, so not UDP, or it's just TCP. And what the port we were given is 5000. Just double check so we don't make a mistake. I don't know if it's 5000 or yes, the port number is 50,000, not 5000. So the port number is 50,000, not 5000. We almost made a mistake there. And then we click next, allow the connection, allow this connection if it is secure, and let's just allow the connection. What rule this applies to? It's a domain, private and public. Let's just leave it as it is. You can just call this rule 50,000. Rule 50,000 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, sorry. And then there we see our new rule. you see a new rule. So now let's go to the outbound rule. Outbound rules, we do the same thing here. Right click and then click new rule. Pardon the slowness of my computer. Again, we go to port because it's a rule for a port. So we click next, and it's supposed to be TCP. Remember the rule, the port number we are given is 50,000. 1, 2, 3, and we allow connection. We call it again rule 50,000. 1, 2, 3, 4. There, done. Now it says that we should demonstrate turning off and turning on and turning off the rule. So let's go to our rule. First, let's go to the inbound sys. We created that first, and we see it here. Click it. We can just turn it off by disabling the rule, here. So we see immediately we disable it, we can see that it's been disabled. You can just turn it back on again by enabling the rule. You see, so that's how you turn it off and on. We will just have to maybe leave it on for now, and let's go back to the outbound rules. Here also we can just disable, that is turning it off, and then we can right click and then enable it back on. Or we could use the right pan here, or pane here, where it says here disable rule. Just click on it, it disables it, and then you can click here, it enables it. So we've been able to create an inbound and outbound rule in our port services in our Windows firewall, and been able to demonstrate how to turn it on and turn it off. Now let's go back to our assignment again and see what's next. It says here create a scheduled task to check for Windows updates daily. Okay, so let's go back to the server. Let's minimize this and then minimize this as well. Now let's go back to the tools. Since we are in our Windows we see down here amongst the tools, we see the task scheduler, because we are supposed to schedule a task for Windows updates on a daily basis. So you see on the right pane here is something that says that create task, or we could just click on the task scheduler and then just right click and then create task. So let's say the name we want to give this task we want to schedule is, we say run Windows update. Update. We could write a description. It just runs update, and then we turn this on, run whether it's the user is logged on or not. Just click that, and then make sure it runs on the highest privileges. So let's just click next, and then under trigger, what triggers it, we add a new trigger to it. It should be on a daily basis, and let's say we do that, we ask it to do it, let's say every 2 a.m. We can just either check this or uncheck this, synchronize across time zones, and it should recur every day, so it's on a daily basis, one day. We can this in advance, you can add delays or whatever it is, but it's not necessary. So we click next, and the action, we add a new action, what it should do, and it should, we check here, it says it should start a program, like the program we want it to start. So and then the program script, which program should run it, we pick the program we should run. Let's say PowerShell, so that PowerShell can enable the command. So let's pick like PowerShell. Yes, click the PowerShell. Yes, we have to add a script to it, since we are using PowerShell is the one going to automatically start the Windows update program. We have to add a script to it. So let's look for I'm trying to find a script that will we could just maybe add a script here, but it's an optional thing. So let's say in drive C, scripts, run Windows update dot PowerShell 1. You can just, and then when you are done with the new action, you add it to it. The conditions for it to start, you can add a condition: start for only if the computer is powered on, stop the computer, switches back to power saver, wake the computer to run this. You could just do that as well. And then network, start only if the following network connection is established. So maybe you could do it so far as you connect to the internet, it starts. You could do this, and then any connection, when there's a connection to the internet, or you could say start the task only if the computer is idle. for like maybe 10 minutes. You could, the conditions to it, like, but you could just maybe leave this as it is, and then it runs at maybe 2 a.m. like the way you set it. So you could just leave it this way, and then click OK, and then check the settings. Run task as soon as possible if you want. Allow task to be run on demand, like yes, like for instance, or start, if the task fails, you should restart in about maybe let's say 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and all that. You could just do that, and then you click OK. Now we have to input our password since it's an administrative thing we are doing. So we have to put in our password as administrator, and then we click OK. So in the task library, let's refresh and see if we find our scheduled task. Here we see it amongst the task scheduler library. We see our run Windows task that we've created here. You can see it here. So we can now just close our task scheduler. Also close other services like the Windows firewall where you created a new rule, and close it as well. So right, we basically have been able to create all this, find 2 ports, and be able I hope I was able to explain the 2 ports for you, the LDAPS port, which is the 636, and the port 53, which is the DNS server port. I hope I was able to also explain the DHCP client to you, and also the DNS server to you. We were able to create a new rule in our inbound and outbound traffic ports, which is 50,000, using the port 50,000. We demonstrated how to turn it on and turn it off by enabling and disabling it. We've also been able to schedule a task to check for Windows updates 2 a.m. Whatever time you want in our task using the task scheduler tool on our Windows server. So I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.